We now have our next speaker, who is an ICF-PCC, and she'll keep you informed. But Karen Retardo is founder. I love this. She's founder and CEO. Wow, are we privileged? And I love the name of your coaching, Heart-Centered, Realistic, or Holistic. It better be realistic too. Holistic coaching. And she's from Huntington Beach, California. Have any of you been to Huntington Beach? Yeah, nice place to have your heart improved upon, is in Huntington Beach. All right, well, she's going to be talking to us about leading through identity-based barriers. Whoa, imposter syndrome, I hear about that quite a bit. And self-doubt and worthlessness in nursing leadership. We don't have that in nursing leadership, do we? Well, we're very pleased that you're here, Karen, and I'll let you take it away. And you're all wired up, huh?
All wired up.
All right. Stay tuned. Is her PowerPoint? Yes. Okay. Have to let Tariq push the right buttons, or it might come up with something we don't want.
Hello, hello. Yes. Okay. Well, let me tell you about a morning. Your alarm goes off at 5:47. And not because you set your alarm on, but it's just that your brain just didn't stop. And you look at your phone and you get a message from the night nurse. Someone called out. And there's a patient situation that needs a decision. And you got an email from a staff, 3-paragraph long, which could have been shorter and just sent via email. Now it's 6:15 and you haven't washed your face, you haven't brushed your teeth, but you've already made 4 decisions, mediated a conflict, and apologized to someone, and you don't even remember why you apologized. By 9 a.m., you've already run a huddle, and you've also helped out your staff because they were short of staff. And there you are, attending a leadership meeting, sitting, nodding, smiling, and in your head asking, why did I even agree to this? Am I even doing the right thing? And then at night, you crawl into bed and you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna decompress for a few minutes. But 2 hours later, there you are, watching a TEDx on servant leadership and simultaneously reading a comment about how to keep our nurse retention. And you also saved a book about emotional intelligence. And that's what happens when self-doubt, imposter syndrome is in our head. We don't know how to set boundaries. And that voice, it runs in our head 24/7. And before we dive in, I just want to thank the organizers of this conference, because I know it's not a small feat to put up a conference like this. So thanks to Donna and Robin and all the other staff. And even Abir, she's not here, but she was the one who was always in touch to make sure that we run the conference, this summit smoothly. So please, let's give Donna and Robin a round of applause. And also to ourselves for showing up, because if not for us being here, this won't happen. So please give yourself a round of applause for showing up. And nurse leaders, nurse managers, I see you. I see you as someone where you walk into a room full of people and they look up to you and they think you have all the answers. And I see you building your team's confidence, even though sometimes that's running out inside of ourselves. And I see all the things that you do. Because we have nurse managers who doubts her judgment, her intuition, even though she has 20 years of clinical expertise. And nurse directors, leaders who build their team's confidence and, like I said, quietly questioning or running out of her own confidence. Or CNOs who have the experience and the credentials, and still sometimes he or she thinks like, oh, maybe I just got lucky getting this position. Well, the many hats we wear, right? Not just as nurses, but even as moms, sisters, daughters, and so many roles to think. And sometimes we question our identity. A little about me. Well, I'm a first generation immigrant. I migrated here when I was 20 from the Philippines. And I didn't want to be a nurse. I wanted to be a doctor, not a nurse. But sad to say, but like one of the fastest way to leave the Philippines is to be a nurse because there's shortage not just in the US, but even in the UK and different parts of the world. So my mom and my grandma told me, like, Karen, why don't you take nursing as your pre-med? And then if you want to pursue your being a doctor, you could take other courses. Then when I came here, I did eventually fell in love being a nurse. But this is me, around 7 or 8 years old, second grade, sitting in the classroom. And our teacher was about to announce the honor roll. And there I was waiting for my name to be called. However, it didn't happen. Instead, I got an award that I'll forever remember. Best in conduct. Best in conduct, not even math, not even science, not even English, not even music and arts, but best in conduct. And at you could see, like, even at an early age, I am being rewarded for being the good girl, being the quiet one, that someone that doesn't rock the boat. And yes, it beautifully helped me being a nurse, the empathy, being empathetic. But at the same time, it didn't help in becoming a leader because it didn't teach me how to talk about my accomplishments without feeling like I'm bragging. And there's even a research study that showed, like mostly for women, if there's a job position and we don't check off all of the 10 requirements, we won't even apply. However, for men, we have a few men in the room, they said even if they check off 60% of the requirements, they would apply. And I was curious when I heard about that research, so I started asking my male friends and even my cousins, and they even said, like, yeah, even if I got 30 to 40% of the requirements, I would still apply, and I'll just learn as I go. And I'm like, oh my God, not for women, we like 110% to accomplish. And it's so ingrained in us as women. And 78%, what do you think this number represents? Well, like there's a research by Nerd Wallet, and they said 78% of leaders, business owners, experience imposter syndrome. And 59% of those leaders have considered leaving their roles because that voice in their head is just so rampant. Like, it's like the inner critic in our head. Yeah, so like it was the new research from NerdWallet that found out that 78% of business leaders experience workplace imposter syndrome, causing 59% to considering leaving their role. And as nurses, there's these three things that I think is important. This is not research based, but just based on my observation and lived experience. It's like self doubt is that voice that questions whether we belong, whether we're doing enough, or whether others can see through us. And then identity. Who am I? Who do I believe myself to be as a leader? And the story, oops, how do I go back? And the story that we carry. And then leadership presence is how our team, other people perceive us. And I wanted to ask, you know, what comes to mind when you hear the word confident? And popcorn share, like no right or wrong answer. Self-esteem, yes. Anyone else? Or like, what does confident mean to you? Bold? Anyone else? Yes, those are great answers. Yep. Anyone else? Executive presence. Yes, yes, yes. And I wanted to share a few myths because I think we've been fed of like I would say like old stuff about confidence, but like there's distinctions that I've observed. Old thinking about confidence is external validation, like waiting for others to say, I'm like, oh yeah, Karen, like you're good at what you do. Or thinking like I have to be confident first before I start. And then the perfectionist dilemma. Before this presentation, I was like practicing and practicing, and I'm like, you know what? Life happened. My mom had surgery last week, and I just didn't have enough time to like really practice this talk. And I'm like, they're nurses. They're gonna forgive me. I don't need to be perfect. And then we also think like, oh, confidence is a fixed trait. Like either I have it or I don't. And that confidence is loud, like extrovert, loud, loud, loud. But like the distinction that I said, like, ooh, confidence, the new thinking about confidence is internal validation. That we need to validate ourselves first, the stories that we tell ourselves. And confidence comes from starting, from taking action. We think like, oh, I need to be confident first, but in order to be confident, you need to take action. It takes practice. Just imagine when we started as nurses. I remember like starting an IV, it scared the crap out of me. But like the more we did it, like it felt easier. That's the thing with confidence too. Years ago too, I was so scared to speak in front of people, but practice makes perfect, and I also joined Toastmasters just to harness and polish that skill of public speaking. And confidence is about embracing, our imperfections and trusting and believing ourselves that if I fall or stumble, that I'll be able to, stand up, get up, and brush off myself. And confidence is a skill. It's not a fixed trait. It gets better as we do it. And there's also power with quiet confidence. And I'm not saying like, oh, extroverts are not good, but it's really honoring who you are, your strengths, your values, and sometimes there's more power with quiet confidence. And like Donna shared, those like the sweet and nice leader and also the one who's gonna unleash the flying monkeys. So learning when to use one of those. And the next one that I'm gonna share, like who here has watched Ted Lasso? Oh, I love Ted Lasso. I discovered it 2 years ago, and I binge watched all 3 seasons 5 times. Oh my God, I know. But one of my coach said, when you watch or read something for the first time, for information. And the second, third, fourth, fifth time, it's for transformation. And it's so true, because there were certain scenes in Ted Lasso that I'm like, huh? They said that, and it just goes deeper and deeper. So for those who knows Ted Lasso, and those who don't, but there's this character, her name's Rebecca, and she got divorced, and one of the gifts or exchange that her husband gave her was to own a soccer team, or football, they call it. And she was going to attend a meeting with all other football owners, but they were all men. And she did this to change the physiology or to build her confidence. Will it play? Oh, is there volume? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when Robin was looking for me, I was doing my own version in the restroom. I'm like, and don't worry, I'm not gonna ask you to stand up and make that weird sound and stick out your tongue. But like, it's just an invitation that, when we change our body or move our body, it does a physiological change inside us. And there's Dr. Amy Cuddy, I believe, wrote the book Presence. Bold, I wrote it down. Bringing your boldest self to your biggest challenge. And she does mention that. And you probably heard about the Superman pose, or they say Wonder Woman pose, or just stretching your arms out wide. And sometimes doing that in your office, probably preparing before your meeting your staff, or when you're about to have a difficult conversation. Silly stuff, but it could, make a difference. And imposter syndrome. Yana, you're not alone. They've been publicly open about, Tom Hanks, Oprah, Michelle Obama, and Maya Angelou. They've been open about sharing feeling like a fraud sometimes. And I think in our society, we try to overcome imposter syndrome, but we're humans. It will never go away. So rather than having an adversarial role with imposter syndrome, let's embrace it. And sometimes imposter syndrome, it's just those wounded child healing that needs to be heard. And weird stuff that I do, sometimes I would talk and invite imposter syndrome. Like today it was loud, and I told imposter syndrome, like, okay, let's talk at 5 p.m. when this summit is over, because right now it's not helping. So having those conversation and setting an appointment, because they're gonna, just like any kid. They get louder if they don't get what they want. So same stuff with self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Sometimes they just want to be heard. So either journaling or setting an appointment with them and telling them like, okay, I'm going to meet with you and we're going to have a conversation. And just normalizing like you're not alone. I think Donna and Britt even mentioned this, like, like we think we're the only one who's experiencing this, but it's actually everyone's feeling it. And this was like, imposter syndrome is described as the internal experience of doubting your abilities, the internal experience of believing you're not as competent, capable, or qualified as others think you are, even when there's evidence to the contrary. So how do we embrace imposter syndrome? Well, there's this concept that most therapies and in coaching, I use this too. It's called the learning zone model. So what do we do with imposter syndrome when it shows up? And I call this the learning zone model. There's comfort zone, stretch zone, and the panic zone. So like, for the comfort zone, it's safe, it's familiar. But example of being in your comfort zone as a nurse leader could be like, oh, you stop advocating for yourself. Or you go along with decisions, you feel, I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel right. But like, since you don't want to rock the boat, you don't say or mention it. You don't push back when a physician or a higher leader, like you just don't challenge because, like I said, you want to feel safe and you don't want to rock the boat. Then sometimes, like we go to the extremes, like the panic zone, where we're overwhelmed. And this is where imposter syndrome sends us like the overcompensating mechanism. Like we over-prepare, over-explain, over-deliver. So that's the panic zone. And yet there's a stretch zone. And stretch zone is where growth happens. It's where your heart races slightly, it goes up, but you still feel grounded. And you're able to learn and grow. And it's usually around the stretch zone where like real leadership presence is built. And, not in the comfort of hiding and also not in the chaos of panic zone where burnout could happen. So, yes. And I thought this was just going to be a 30-minute presentation. So I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that, I don't go over time. But I also want to ask, like, with this learning zone model, when you think about your challenges in leadership, like what's one brave action that feels a little scary, but it's aligned with who you're becoming? If you would just reflect on that and maybe think about it or journal about it, and then in a minute or so, like I'm gonna ask you to share, what you wrote. But like, yeah, the prompt is like, what's one brave action that feels a little scary, especially in the concept of nurse leadership, but is aligned with who you're becoming. And if you would, face the person next to you and just share your thoughts or what you've journaled about. And just share, like what's one brave action that you could take maybe next week or when you get home that feels a little scary but aligned with who you're becoming. I'll give you 4 minutes, 2 minutes each to share, and partner A will be the person with the shorter hair, and partner B, all you're gonna do is listen, no advising, and then partner A, yeah, like begin and share, and I'm gonna time it so you don't need to worry about time. So begin. Okay, it's time to switch. Partner A, your turn to listen, and partner B will share. Okay, time to wrap it up. Time, time to wrap it up. and would love to hear if there's a brave soul who wants to share their insights. Anyone here who feels courageous to share? We have mics ready. Anyone? Oh, here. Please say your name and
Hi, I'm Rachel.
hi, Rachel.
Kate was my partner, and we both are newer leaders and newer in our role. And sometimes that is a barrier in itself. And so we often find the need to like prove this presence and prove our worth when we work with leaders who have been in the game a lot longer, and not leave room for doubt. And we talked about the struggle of like a lot, Kate even said like 90% of that is internal, right? Like we tell ourselves like, I'm new, I'm not as experienced, I don't have these like life experiences, I don't have clinical experience that matches this leader. And so we almost have that self-doubt where we have to kind of talk ourselves up, but then also not be overbearing and I'm, leading this group and, not to be too much. And so it's just finding that balance of, proving who you are, but again, creating that consistency and that longevity of that, to not create this ebb and flow as a leader and just create that consistent like trajectory up. So.
Yeah, oh, thanks for sharing that, Rachel. Like, it's so true. Like, and if you remember when we were new nurses, we've experienced that. Who else wants to share? There.
So my name's Radine, and I kind of wanted to piggyback off what they were talking about. I actually signed up for this conference as a student, but I was promoted to leadership in the last 90 days. So also very new.
Congratulations!
Thank you, but very intimidating. And the video that you showed with the little girl, I got a little bit emotional because I've had to do that. I've had to walk into the room and say, okay, look at your little self and tell her you earned this. We're talking about the role identity and that I'm a professional and I've worked really hard, but it is hard to be a newer leader. I'm 39, so I'm the youngest on our team, and trying to teach the team that I'm here because I care about you. I didn't do this for me. I've worked with you all side by side, and I want to teach you your value and what you mean to me and this team, but it's really hard to convey with I'm learning managing the people ahead of me and then the people below me and trying to like figure out a common ground being new. But just really that imposter syndrome is very real, and I've had a lot of those little moments of, okay, there's a reason you're here and it's going to be okay. Walk into the room like you are capable because you are. But it's really facing that little girl and reminding her how far you've come.
Yes.
So I liked
Thanks,
that video.
Radine.
So I just had to share that.
And it's so true, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I've started reframing imposter syndrome as something negative. I'm like, oh, that means I'm just stepping into that stretch
I've thought about it like it's just vulnerability. It's admitting that I'm not a perfect nurse. I'm never going to be a perfect leader. And I try to share that with my team, that I am also learning and growing from my interaction with you. So yeah, trying to embrace that a little bit too, to kind of keep me vulnerable. And anyways, so I wanted to share that.
Yep, and just what Britt shared too, and like the theory of Dr. O'Rourke, like it's really building those connection and showing that we're humans too, that we're not perfect, and like the new concept about confidence, right? It's embracing our imperfections and knowing that we'll be okay if we fall and make mistakes. Yes. Anyone else who wants to share? Last person to share? Yes. There. Oh, the mic. I think Reading has the mic. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
My partner was Britt, and so I was just sharing with her, like being in my role. I've been in this role or nurse manager role for 8 years, and then just having in the stretch zone the confidence to readdress certain projects or ideas that you've had that's been rejected in the past. So I think sometimes as a leader, you kind of yes, your confidence is maybe a little shaken when it's like, okay, you have this great idea, you want to do this, and you don't necessarily know sometimes the reason why we can't go this way or do this or that, but just having that confidence to go back and say, hey, is now the time, presenting a plan, to your boss and senior leaders about why this is important and, how you're going to do it all. So just, stretching yourself and moving forward in that aspect.
Yes, yep, thanks. Oh, and Dr. Work, yes.
Age matters. You can get through it. Some people don't believe that because I'm very confident in what I do that I could ever have had imposter syndrome. Everybody gets it, but my way I deal and have dealt with it, because I'm in the comfort zone now. I can handle unpleasant truth. I want to know if you don't like what I said, then tell me why you don't like it, and we'll have a conversation about it. And I feel very comfortable in that mode. But I also think, remember, I'm a psychiatric clinical nurse specialist. Where's my psych people? Anybody still here with me? There you go. If you take a look at where you think the imposter syndrome came from, was it a family? Like I told you, I was in a paternalistic Southern Italian experience, and my brother was always right. That's, once I began to look at where the genesis was, it was amazing how you went, as you look back, you thought, well, that was silly. Why am I letting that hang in there all these years? And you have to let go. So there's part of moving past the imposter syndrome is to let go of where it came from.
Yes.
Because that wasn't valid and reliable anyway. I mean, who said my brother was better than me? And I know I wasn't, and we used to fight over it all the time. So think about that from a psychology standpoint. And this is great. This is a lovely way of looking at that. I hadn't looked at it this way, and I confirmed that I'm in the comfort zone. So you can get there.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't sweat a little bit before every time I try to go up on the stage. That's not the same thing. Thank you.
Yes, oh, thanks, Dr. Rourke. And so true. Like wisdom, practice, and putting the reps, right? Like as nurses, we put in numbers of hours of being a nurse, and there's that comfort zone level anymore, and now stepping into new roles like nurse leaders, nurse managers. It's something new, and sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, and sometimes it's not even permission from others for you to be a leader, but it's really giving ourselves permission. Like the permission needs to come from us first. Because like I said, we're our worst critic, and the voices in like Rachel said, like it's 90% internal. It's not even out there. And yes, Dr. Work, like it's really healing our inner child. There's this book, I know Oprah was, I don't know if she was a co-author, but it's called What Happened to You. And it's not just us, but like even other people, if they're acting or behaving a certain way, like what Donna mentioned, it could be something related to how they were brought up. And there's the compassion and grace that we give, not just as a nurse, but like to another human being. And now my gift to you, if you wanted a copy of this slide, just scan this QR code, and I'm gonna give you, a copy of the slides. And I would also love to hear your feedback so I could be better as a speaker, as a presenter, and would appreciate that. And I saw Robin putting the sign. I have a few minutes left, and I have 6 minutes left, and I wanted to end my presentation with the goddess story. So, once upon a time, this goddess created the world, made it so beautiful. And when she was done creating the world, she said, you know what? She was talking to her advisors. I want to leave a part of me, my divine spark, my divine essence, to human beings, because I just wanted them to remember who they really are or who they could be. So one of the advisors said oh, Your Majesty, I know where you could hide that gift. Hide it at the highest mountain peak. And the goddess said, oh, no. Human beings, they're so smart. They're gonna climb the highest mountain peak and find that gift. So one of the advisors said, "Oh, Your Majesty, I think you could just dig, like the deepest part of the earth and hide it there." And just like, but I gave human beings intellect and brain and great minds, so I know they'll be able to dig the deepest part of the earth and find that gift. And another advisor said, like, "Oh, you're a goddess. I know where you're gonna hide it. Like, the deepest ocean." "I think not," the goddess said, "because they're gonna build ships, boats, and they're gonna be able to go to the deepest ocean and find that gift." So the goddess was thinking, I'm like, where am I gonna hide it? And she said, "I know where I'm gonna hide it. I'm gonna hide it where, like, if they really look deeply and sincerely, they are gonna find it." "Where, Your Goddess, where are you gonna hide it?" "In their hearts." Because human beings, they love looking for answers outside of themselves, but they rarely look inside their hearts. So that's where I'm gonna hide that divine gift, that divine spark. And I want to end my presentation with that story, because nurse leaders, sometimes we're so tempted to find the answers out there. But nurse leadership is about self-leadership and trusting our own wisdom, our own answers. But like Britt was saying, like, there's so much noise. And sometimes we need to slow down and quiet ourselves and find our own answers to be able to lead our team. Thank you.